awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so proud, so happy that I get to share the stage with. Sometimes it feels like YA in Nigeria. Moves was it to get your book? How easy was it for?
We didn't have many edits, and we went through the whole editing phase, went through all of it, and
Like for you, Blessing?
Well, for me, it's been quite a long journey. I've been writing. I started off writing for children, and my protagonist. I ended up writing, and I'd taken a break. In fact, I'd actually given up writing fiction, and I had decided I was going to start working in film. Found me rather than any friend. Maybe let me find something itself within a very short kind of home, and it took a life of its own.
Oh, wow, in 50 days.
And the characters they were very much alive and
well, it worked for you.
Accident was after a batch P6 then, and because so at that time by the better writing for a young adult audience B, so I kept like 2 hours. My story was done from so then I've just been going strong with YA from then.
Oh wow, that's that's an incredible story. She has to be the mother to 3 younger sisters, right? And to their well-being, because you see Amelie, she has so many hats on. She is a mother, and so many other things go wrong when she has to.
In writing about Amelie, and I think it's maybe it cuts across. Like my sister who is before me, she's in charge of everything. Even till now, we still, go to her when in our own personal issues. So I think it's something that cuts across. But in Amelie's case, with the added burden of poverty, and she doesn't have the luxury.
What do you think we should change? We could change about this.
So I think grow up and then you realize that the world is really not. We force children to grow up quickly, and then when they are adults and they are probably not very stable mentally, we wonder why. I think it's all this responsibility we put on children at an early age. So leave kids to be kids, leave them to make their own decisions.
Your books are both mysteries, I'd say. Death in the family, right? They are very sensitive issues, but you've taken them best person to tell the story. It was not a murder. You wrote something about death in the family.
Yes.
Yes, and I like the way you wrote about it with compassion. What made you feel like you were in the best place to tell the story?
Oh, okay. It was a very interesting thing, because when I started writing, going to be absent, and I couldn't figure out what reason I wanted to give her for being absent of a family, and she wanted to go and be herself, because I had sort of buried it somewhere in the middle of the book, almost towards the end, to say this is what happened to the mother. The mother with my agent. She said, let's start off with the family in crisis and put the death at the beginning, and so that. I years deeply affected by the death for you, and so analyzed process rather than
the best position to do it.
Okay, I wouldn't really say I was in the best position to do it.
I beg to differ.
Okay, this okay, this famous paraphrased actually. So this was a book. I mean, I read a lot of Western novels, serial killers, and the whole suspense, and I was always, and everyone has access to it.
And everybody is happy.
Yes, everybody is happy.
Thank you so much for writing that story.
Thank
I was
you.
very excited to read it because, I'm a Port Harcourt girl too.
Yeah. We're always set in Lagos. Where am I living? Like, is Port Harcourt not on the map? And yeah. So yes, that was something else.
Sadie chose.
Did you choose for me?
Page 74 from the second paragraph.
Chapter 14.
So, page 74, second paragraph.
Wow, really?
Yes. It's not that long, I practiced it.
Up to 70. He met and fell in love with Mama. And even though they are always telling us that love and school don't mix, It's obvious that no one told them the same thing or didn't tell it to them every chance they got. It was poor and a bit scattered all over the place. Some of Baba's family live in Zambia and some in South Africa, and they're not so close. Didn't set a good example for his sisters. I think that they gave us the diet. She was pregnant with Chichi. She said she even got a pill to take to close the chapter. Changed. You overhear a lot of things, don't you? Mitikaish murmurs. Otherwise, how will I know anything? They laughed dryly. Was all the response I got. I had thought I might get a good rise out of that one, but Mitikaish knows what I'm about. Even if you knew, they say. It's amazing, I say. Full ombre mode now. Notes and flowers all around their head, as if they have been arranged by some high-end florist. Their dreads are black again. You're tricky, I say. I am what you make me, they smile. What changed in the evening for your mother? I don't know. The trouble with eavesdropping is that you don't always get to hear everything. I had to gap it when I heard Baba coming up the stairs, and I could never tell that Mama was not so into kids. She wasn't that much into herself during that time. I started to know Mama when I was about 6. Before that, you find yourself there. It's scary. But you leave it all behind and build new.
And this is the first time she meets the lady who she eventually stays with. I blew on the logs again. Nothing happened. Sister Melly, a car has stopped in front of our house. It's Porsche. When the door opened, cold air like the Hamatan wind came out, and the woman inside must be Miss Ghana or something. Chuchu said all this without pausing for move her hand from her mouth. Her 2 upper front teeth had fallen out, one after the other, 2 weeks ago. Her playmates had told her that if a lizard saw the space where the teeth had been while she was talking, the new teeth would never erupt. Since lizards were common sights on the walls and roofs of our house, Chocho's hands were now permanently glued to her mouth. Sister Melly, come and see, Chocho insisted, pulling me to my feet with her free hand. Amakai hurried into the cooking area. The woman wants to see Amelie, Mommy. Sister Amelie, won't you go and greet the woman in the car? Chocho asked with her hand still over her mouth. Vashti's cat came into the cooking area and rubbed its body around Amakai's legs. Sister Amelie, if you don't go, she'll think we are disrespectful, Amakai said. I looked from one sister to another. I wasn't going to fall for their prank. They had been trying to trick me into going to see Amelie Mommy the entire morning. Oh, really? I said, pouring some kerosene from a green beer bottle onto the damp wood. Tell her Amelie Mommy is asleep. We already did. She said we should wake her up. Amakai said, and from the look on her face, I could tell she was serious. I struck a match against the box and held it to the damp wood, knowing even as I did so that I was wasting both my time in the woods. If this is a prank, we all eat kinky this evening. I won't even try lighting this wood anymore, and I'll send both of you to get the kinky from Ofoi Mami. Sister Amelie, we are not lying to you. Just come and see her, Chocho said, dragging me out with one hand. I followed Amakai and Chocho, though I expected them to start laughing about how I had fallen for their prank when we got to the main compound. To my surprise, there was indeed a black jeep parked under the cashew tree. I could see movement behind our neighbors' curtains as people spied on us. I didn't blame them. I would have done the same if the situation had been reversed. This being a Sunday, almost everyone was home, but there would be no gossip tonight because there was no way the occupants of that car knew any members of my family. The car looked like it had just been oiled with shea butter. It gleamed and sparkled in the sunlight. A woman dressed in a rich gold lace cap and slits stood by the back door. I could see why Chocho thought she was Miss Ghana. She was beautiful. She was even more beautiful than the current Miss Ghana. And she was here to see Amelie Mommy. Surely there must have been a mistake. This woman must have gotten our Amelie Mommy mixed up with some other Amelie Mommy. There was no way my mother knew someone this posh. The woman had fancy written all over her. She had gold jewelry on her neck, ears, wrists, and fingers. Huge sunglasses hid her eyes and almost half of her face. When she used her hand to position her sunglasses properly, the gold bracelets on her wrist sparkled. I could see she felt uncomfortable as our neighbors came out of their rooms to stare at her. No longer satisfied with spying from behind their windows, all of the adults suddenly found reasons to be outdoors. The children openly gawked. Most of the older kids carried their younger brothers and sisters on their backs. I could count 4 children with runny noses and red eyes the entire day. I walked quickly to where she stood. Amakai and Chocho were close on my heels, their eyes fixed on the woman. "Good afternoon, madam," I said. "Oh, hello. You must be Naamele." I gasped. How did she know that? A part of me was thinking, if she knew my name, that meant I also knew someone posh. I couldn't quite process that at the moment. "Yes, madam," I stammered. She really did know my mother. How? Were they classmates? I very much doubted that, since Amele Mami had dropped out of school when she was 10. How did they know each other? A ripple of excitement went through me as I noted everything about her. I'd have a lot to tell Sheba when I saw her next. "My, look how you've grown," the woman said, taking a step toward me and reaching out as if she wanted to hug me. At the last minute, she withdrew her hands and looked at me from head to toe, but not before I had caught a whiff of her perfume. She smelled like jasmine and orange blossoms. As she put her arms back by her side, I realized how dirty my sisters and I looked. We had not had a bath in 4 days. The taps had gone off a week ago, even at the church down the street. Though we had a drum full of water, we had begun rationing our supply, and bathing daily didn't feature high on our list of priorities. "I'm Rosina, your mother's friend. Tell her I'm here." Your mother's friend kept playing through my mind as I hurried to do as I was told. So Amele Mami did know posh people. If Amele Mami knew this woman, were there others we didn't know about? It's quite lengthy. Should I go on?
I want you to stop at "There's a woman here to see you." So yeah.
Okay. Amele Mami had never mentioned a friend called Rosina. I hadn't even known Amele Mami knew anyone who owned a private car. I didn't remember ever meeting this Rosina woman. There was no way I'd have forgotten her face, her clothes, or her smell. It was a bad time to notice that Makai hadn't swept in front of our room. Goat droppings lay scattered everywhere. I wiped my feet on the shabby welcome mat. Out of the 7 letters, only 3 remained, E, L, and M. Various mismatched chalewotes lay scattered on and around the mat. I kicked them to the corner of the veranda and opened the screen door with the torn mosquito netting. I quickly rolled up our mattresses. I swept aside the faded curtains to Amele Mami's sleeping area where she lay on the bed. I nudged her. She groaned and asked me to go away, but I persisted. "There's a woman here to see you, a posh woman. She's called Auntie Rosina." Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will know what happened to Janet Uzo.
Okay, I'm going to read a portion that would probably explain the whole context of the book. They were once a trio: Pamela, Ebere, and Janet. She had been the vivacious one, Janet, the queen bee, the one who could get whatever she wanted, the definition of beauty and brains. Pamela still couldn't bring herself to think about the incident. All she knew was that 1 minute, Janet was alive, and the next, she was dead. Ebere, on the other hand, liked to remember things, every little detail. And like a buzzing fly, she never let up. She hadn't been the same since Janet died. Ebere had been annoying before, but now she was often unbearable. When Janet's body arrived at the mortuary, a 23-year-old resident doctor, who happened to be Ebere's aunt, received it. Ebere had been so adamant that Janet wasn't dead, that it was all a huge mistake. She had camped outside the hospital for hours waiting for confirmation. Her aunt had to deliver the truth to her personally. But she told Ebere something else too, and had unknowingly planted a seed in her mind that managed to grow into a mighty oak. During the autopsy, her aunt had noticed something strange. Janet's lungs didn't have the amount of water one would expect for a drowning victim. If I didn't know any better, I would say she was already dead before she got into that river. Ebere became an investigator. In the months afterwards, she started to research and piece together deaths of other kids in their town. And she narrowed them down to 4 suspicious cases, all the victims from Afobiri Secondary School. There was James Iaye, the senior prefect, whose spleen had been ruptured by a car as he crossed the street. A year later, Paul Tamnowari was found dead in a well. And the next year, Martha Arthur had been discovered by her mother, lying twisted at the bottom of the stairs with a broken neck. Then exactly a year ago today, Janet Uzo was found responsive on the shallow banks of Ibeto River.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our 3 authors. You have done so well. I'm going to read the books again because that's how I do things. So now we're going to move to Q&A. If you have any questions, please indicate. We have somebody. And another person. Are you stretching? Okay.
Good day, everyone. My name is Lara, and I have a question just thrown to the panel. Anyone can answer it. My question is, writing YA has to, you have to balance out the conflict and make it easier for young adults to read it. So how do you try and make it not a lot of conflict, so it's not like too much for their like sensibility? Like, how do you make it easy for young people to read about conflict and understand it without feeling, getting depressed or feeling like getting scared about like what actually goes on in the world?
Well, in my case, I feel like young adults, especially young adult readers, they are aware of a lot more than we think. They know what's going on. And my approach when I'm writing for a young audience is I write as honestly as I can, and usually it somehow kind of balances itself out because I don't think so much of who I'm writing for. I focus more on how authentic my story is being and whether the voice is being honest and being real. And I think that with young people, the best thing we can do when we are sharing with them is just to be honest.
Let me just add something to what Blessing said. So alongside being honest, how I handle YA is I tried my best to be very empathetic, to put myself in the shoes of these young adults. I try to imagine myself as them, imagine their struggles, imagine how life is for them. And I think it's easier because when I was writing What Happened to Janet Uzo, I was actually a young adult myself. So I was actually feeling the feelings, I was going through everything, I was having all the whole conflicts with my parents, and it was so easy to pen that down. And so growing with the book and continuously writing, it soon became a go-to for me. So I could easily just put myself in their shoes and I know how to put things to them. I know how I wanted to hear things when I was a child, so I would actually do that to them so it would make more impact. Thank you.
Thank you. You're next. You in front.
Okay. Hi, my question is for Ruby. So I read a lot of children's books. I actually first discovered you from Mama's Amazing Cover Cloth. So I'm wondering how easy is it to transition from picture books to, because Mama's Amazing Cover Cloth is a picture book, so from picture books to YA, and I'm just finding out that you have books for adults as well.
Also, I read everything. I have picture books, I have YA books, I have adult books. So when I get a story idea, it depends on where it fits. And personally, for me, writing picture books is like the hardest thing ever, because these are like sometimes as young as 2, 3, and you have to get their imagination and keep it, So I read a lot to know what they like and what the trends are and what keeps them. It's easier if you're writing for young adults or for adults, because you can describe as much as you want. You do all those things. But with picture books, you have just maybe maximum 800 words or something, and then most of everything else is in the pictures themselves. So I read a lot, and I test it out. I have a large family, so I test it out on my nephews and nieces, and they're my first beta readers. It's not, writing young adults and adults is not too difficult for me. I find it more difficult to write picture books. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's someone in front. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so this question is for Miracle, sorry. So you said you wrote the story you wanted to see written, and that means if you wrote it when you were young and it's published now, what was your journey to seeing your book in print like? Did you ever think that was going to happen?
No. Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, so did I see myself being an author? Yes, I did. The thing is, I think this whole thing still boils down to this whole YA and this awareness. Now, as a child, I actually had no idea it was possible to be an author. All I knew was I had to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Those were the only careers, else you were a failure. So these were the only things I knew to be, and writing was a hobby. I could never think of it as a career. And I had no idea there was anybody like Chimamanda then. I mean, I didn't know who these people were, actually. I just felt they were people who wrote. It wasn't a career, per se. They just wrote for writing's sake. And I found myself in that boat, and obviously it was not a career choice for me. So writing was something on the side. And so when I continued to grow, I continued to get into the world of literature. I took it more seriously. And then for the first time, I think it was in my 3rd year in the university, I discovered you could even study it in school. I felt so cheated, and I was studying biochemistry. it was so painful. What am I doing here? And my roommate is reading novels as assignments, and I'm here with huge textbooks, getting chemical reactions. So it was really a journey for me. And finally, I, considering the fact I was also writing mystery, and most competitions, most workshops, most programs, they were basically seeking, I don't want to say, but it seemed like they were looking for literary fiction, books that could touch your heart, break your heart. And I was writing about solving a crime. I mean, you really didn't do it for them. So submitting my books, that was something I went through. I would always submit, and I would never be chosen. I would never be picked for anything. And if there were free workshops to be hosted, they were always in Lagos. I was in Port Harcourt. I couldn't make it to any of them. So soon it became a change, it's a thing of mindset. I had to change my perception. So I was no longer submitting my books for awards or submitting for people to give me a chance. Instead, I started submitting my books and my works because I wanted people to know I existed. I mean, I submit and I'm like, I know you're not going to pick me. I know I won't win, but yeah, at least you will know there is a mystery writer in Nigeria, so have that. And then one day, out of the blues, I saw like a newspaper clipping, and there was a section, and I saw new publishing house calls for submissions. I'm like, what are submissions? I didn't even know how traditional publishing worked, funny enough. So I checked them out, and they said, do you have something new and exciting? I'm like, I think I do. And I submitted my first 3 chapters, and then they said, hi, Miracle, we like your book. We want the full one. And I submitted, and now we all want to know what happened to Janet Uzo. So. Thank you.
But I know what happened to Janet Uzo. Do you? Who's next, please? Okay, so
a question for Miracle and another question for the 3 of you. For Miracle, how is your writing process like? Like, how do you come up with your story development? Because you are a mystery writer, and as you said, it's not something very common in Nigeria here. We hardly have some serial killers. I mean, even though there are killings happening, but in the Western... Like in the Western term, a lot of us grew up with American novels. So how do you develop your story? What's your writing process like? And then for all 3 of you, my second question is, where do you get your inspiration from? How do you get your inspiration? Or how do you come up with ideas to write about?
Okay, let me go first and just answer the first question. So my writing process, I'm a plotter. So what I do is first of all, I get the idea, and then I build on it. I build on the story, I build on the characters, and that building phase is actually the bulk. It contains the bulk of the work, especially my character development. I always talk about this a lot. So each of my characters, I do this criminal profiling for each of them. Like each character has like 16 or 11 pages of information, like their backstory, everything. So it helps me. I'm able to create a character I know from the inside. And so once I'm done with the whole characterization of all my main characters and my plot is ready, then the writing is just easy breezy for me because everything has been set out. Then your second question, what was it? Inspiration. Oh, inspiration, life itself. I mean, okay, it's going to sound crazy. So there was a day I was sitting in a bus, and I was behind the driver, and you know the rearview mirror in the middle. So I just looked at it, and then I saw my neck, and I imagined someone slitting my throat. and then I had tapped my friend. I was like, Anne, if you look at your neck in the mirror, what comes to your mind? And she looked at me. I know what came to your mind, but let me tell you what comes to normal people's minds. You can imagine, oh my God, my skin, my necklace. Well, Miracle, I'm sure someone was slitting your throat. I said, yes. So I always imagine the weirdest things, and I could imagine walking down this stairs and like, oh, she falls down, and probably there was a trap there and nobody knew. So I imagine the most bizarre things, and it builds a story in my head. So that's it. Everything inspires me. Thank you.
I think when you said 16 pages, I was like, wow. I mean, that's like, no. So my writing process is chaotic. Sometimes I start from the middle of the book. Sometimes I know the ending. But I think also inspiration is just from everywhere. For this actual book, it was from a news article. So later on in the book, not to give spoilers, but something happens to Naameli, and that was actually a news item, and I felt the child in question hadn't received the justice they deserved, and that story stayed with me for a very long time. So my way of getting justice for the child was in correcting it and writing this book, but inspiration for me comes from everywhere.
For me, in terms of inspiration, Yeah, I would say what tends to happen with the way that I write is, I talk to people, I hear a lot of stories. I like the really weird and out there stories, and something about a story that somebody tells me will stick in my head. And what happens is over time, it's like I have a little map, or like I call it my little suburb. I have a suburb in my head where all ideas have their own address, and once in a while they all come out and have like a neighborhood meet and greet, and then they somehow, the ones that go together will end up in an idea for a story, and it kind of all links up, and that's usually what happens. And then something will spark it off to tie them all together, and then a story starts. And I don't plot. I will plot like the bigger picture, but when I start writing, I tend to change, things as they develop, because characters can have a mind of their own. So so that's what I do for inspiration. I think a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking, and if you ask anybody in my house, they will wonder how I ever write anything, because anytime they see me, I'm lying on my bed, but I'm actually working in my head. So I tell people I never leave my office. My office is never closed. So please just leave me alone. Don't ask me what I'm doing. Don't ask me when I'm writing. I'm working. So, yeah.
We are out of time. Unfortunately, we are out of time. But if you want to see the authors, they're going to be at the bookstore to sign books after now. Yes, so don't forget to catch up with them there. Okay, Mercy, last person. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, my question is for Miracle, and then it can go to the other authors. So, I know Nduzo. Did I get it right? Yes. So, my question is, so Nduzo is her fans, right? Her fans, and they have a community, like how Rihanna has the Navy. So, my question is, how do you sustain your is it fan base?
Yeah. Nduzo.
And for the other writers, do you have those sort of spaces where, okay, a certain demography of readers, like, are your fans, and then they have a name or a tag or something like that? How do you sustain and, like, give them, and also what's coming next for them? So that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Okay. For the record, one of the Nduzo is right here, Ebose. So, sustaining, first of all, building Nduzo, it was a wild thought. It was a wild thought. My book is going to be out soon. I don't know so many people, but I have friends. I know people who know how my journey started, and so I reached out to all of them, and I was like, I have something coming out. I don't know if you'd be interested in helping me out. I would like this book to get to more people. I would like people to know about the book. And so they're like, of course. And then we formed this community, and we didn't have a name. And then I said, okay, what do you think we should name the group? And they thought that, let's be the Uzos, Nduzo, since it's what happened to Janet Uzo. And then I'm like, okay, what about another book? Let's answer this one first. And so we became Nduzo. And so far, every single progress of the book, they really helped. They pushed this book. I mean, a lot of them always receive threats. I will block you. Stop posting this book. I am tired. and then when the book came out, whenever someone, they're like, no, this book where they post every time. It's not this book I was always seeing on your status. And people just knew my book, even without knowing the book. They knew they had seen it on someone's status. They had seen the trailer. They had seen this. So they helped me. I gained a wider reach because of them. And so every success of this book, I always take it back to them. I always tell them how they are like the foundation. And I always make them know how valuable they are to me, to my writing journey, my career as an author. Like, they are pivotal. So I don't make them feel this was a one-time thing. I mean, that was where there's another name we have. It's called Menders. My name is Miracle Emeka Nkwo, so it's an acronym for men. So they just call themselves Menders, so like people who love the works of men. And so I think that's more sustainable for us and any other book I write.
I like Nduzo. Yes, for blessing.
What was the question?
I have a name in mind just in case.
For a fan base?
For your fans.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know who they are yet, so I'm waiting to discover that. But my fan base in past years has been grade 9 readers in South Africa who come to my inbox because they want me to help them do their assignment after they've been given my story to read for school. So that's what I have encountered so far.
I don't have an organized fan base like that. I have people I meet at conferences like this who say, oh, I loved your book, or when we go for school readings and stuff like that. So peace to the Nduzos.
Don't worry, fan base coming up soon. We're going to be called the Metichiasis for you.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And I'm still coming up with a name for you. Yeah. Anyway, this has been fun. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the authors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come for book signing, okay?